Lila's irritation flared as she confronted Marcus. "You're acting like a cranky old hermit again," she snapped, her voice sharp with exasperation. Marcus, lounging in his armchair, raised an eyebrow and fired back with a sly grin. "What, should I start sulking like some angsty teenager instead?" Their age difference, once a minor quirk, now felt like an unbridgeable chasm. Lila, freshly 32, radiated a youthful energy, while Marcus, well into his 40s, seemed to settle deeper into routine. After 6 years of marriage, the fire that once defined their bond had dimmed to a faint glow. Lila still yearned for vibrant nights filled with thumping music, crowded dance floors, and the electric hum of city life. Marcus, by contrast, preferred the calm of early dinners and quiet evenings at home, his taste for adventure fading with the years. Their once harmonious preferences now grated against each other, like notes from clashing melodies. Lila hadn't held a job in years, living comfortably off the income from a rental property she owned. Marcus covered the rest of their expenses, his steady income anchoring their lifestyle. Early on, Lila had indulged freely, splurging on designer clothes, sleek electronics, and occasional trips, sometimes nudging Marcus to cover her overspending. He never minded, always stepping in when her tenants moved out or when bills piled up. But lately something had shifted. Lila began disappearing for hours, offering vague explanations about meeting friends or running errands. "Just grabbing coffee," she'd say, or, "I was with Sarah, you know how it is." Yet she often returned long after Marcus was home from work, her arrivals marked by a breezy nonchalance. When he asked about her day, her responses were clipped evasive. "I just need some space sometimes," she'd insist, her tone shutting down further questions. The subtle change gnawed at Marcus, a quiet unease settling in his chest. One afternoon, while sorting documents at a notary's office near Lila's rental property, Marcus felt a strange urge. Call it intuition or nagging curiosity, but he found himself walking toward her building. The apartment was supposed to be vacant, the last tenants gone weeks ago. Yet as he approached, he noticed warm light glowing from the windows. His stomach tightened. Something wasn't right. Unable to ignore the feeling, he climbed the stairs and dialed Lila's number. "I'm just tidying up the apartment," she said, her voice casual, almost too smooth. "Great," Marcus replied, forcing cheerfulness. "I'm nearby, let me help." When Lila opened the door, her face froze in a fleeting moment of panic. Behind her, a young man, barely in his mid-20s, sat at the kitchen table, flipping through a magazine. A pair of men's sneakers, clearly not Marcus's, sat by the door. His pulse quickened, every instinct screaming betrayal. Before he could speak, the young man stood, extending a hand with a calm smile. "I'm Ethan, Lila's brother," he said. "Got kicked out of my dorm, so I'm crashing here until I sort things out. That's why she's not renting the place right now." The explanation was tidy, almost rehearsed. Marcus shook Ethan's hand, his mind racing. It made sense, but something felt off. Work obligations pulled him away before he could press further, so he filed the questions away for later. That night, over a tense dinner, Marcus brought it up again. "So Ethan's staying at your place?" he asked, watching Lila closely. She sighed, setting down her fork. "Yeah, my husband's bound to be suspicious," she said, as if addressing an imaginary audience. "I never mentioned Ethan before because he's my half-brother. Dad had another family after he and Mom split. Ethan's from that side, so we're not super close." Her tone was matter-of-fact, but Marcus wasn't convinced. In all their years together, she'd never once mentioned a sibling, half or otherwise. The story felt too convenient, too sudden. He recalled a conversation with Lila's father, Henry, at their wedding years ago. They'd exchanged numbers, bonding over a shared love of vintage cars. Now seemed like the perfect moment to reach out. The next morning, Marcus called Henry, keeping the tone light. After some small talk, he casually mentioned Ethan, probing for details about this supposed son. Henry's response was immediate, tinged with confusion. "Son? Lila's my only child," he said. "You must have misheard something." The words hit Marcus like a punch. His suspicion hardened into certainty. Lila had lied. Determined to get answers, Marcus left work early the next day, timing his arrival to catch Lila during one of her mysterious outings. As expected, the apartment lights were on. He knocked, and Ethan answered, looking slightly uneasy. Marcus flashed a warm smile, playing the part of the trusting husband. "Hey, Ethan," he said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Lila mentioned you're studying to be a vet, right?" Ethan nodded hesitantly, clearly thrown by the familiarity. Marcus leaned closer, dropping his voice conspiratorially. "Your sister's a tough one, never asks for help. But she's been dealing with this stubborn infection, something nasty. If you know any doctors who could point her in the right direction, I know she'd appreciate it." Ethan's face went pale, his eyes widening in alarm. Marcus kept his expression friendly, adding with a chuckle, "Don't worry, it's not contagious or anything, just a pain to deal with." Ethan stammered, his composure crumbling. Without a word, he grabbed his backpack from the couch, shoving books and clothes inside. I gotta go," he mumbled, avoiding Marcus's gaze as he hurried out the door. Marcus watched him leave, a wry smile spreading across his face. "Bet he's sprinting to the nearest clinic right now," he muttered, shaking his head. Rather than confront Lila directly, Marcus chose a quieter path. He spent the afternoon packing her belongings, clothes, shoes, gadgets, into neat bags, lining them up in the hallway. When Lila returned, she stepped into the apartment, oblivious at first to the scene. "Marcus, what's with all this?" she asked, gesturing at the bags. "Spring cleaning." He leaned against the counter, his tone calm but edged with steel. "Something like that. I cleared out your stuff. Thought it'd be nice to open up the apartment again. Maybe rent it to some broke students. Though after today, I'm guessing they'll steer clear." Lila's smile faltered, her eyes darting to the bags. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice wavering. Marcus crossed his arms. "I called your dad. Had a nice chat about your family. Funny thing, he's never heard of Ethan." The color drained from Lila's face as the weight of his words sank in. Her secret unraveled, exposed in the stark light of truth. With nowhere to go, she moved into her modest rental apartment, the one she'd once relied on for extra income. But reality hit hard. Without Marcus's financial support, her lavish lifestyle, designer clothes, spontaneous trips, high-end gadgets, was unsustainable. Desperate to regain her footing, Lila threw herself into job hunting. But years out of the workforce made it a grueling task. She considered finding another wealthy partner to bankroll her habits. But word of her deception had spread through Marcus's social circle. No one wanted to touch the drama. Alone in her apartment, surrounded by the remnants of a life she could no longer afford, Lila faced the consequences of her choices. Each day a reminder of the trust she'd shattered.